Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Leon with No More Lines. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Leave a like and a comment and watch the video to the very end. So in this video, I'm going to go over error handling. Error handling is probably one of the most important topics in Excel VBA, especially for automation purposes. Error handling is how you deal with unexpected errors and breaks in your automation and VBA code. And it allows you to identify and deal with certain situations where data it may not be formatted or set up in the correct way. So just for clarification, when I mean a fatal error, I mean an error that requires user intervention. So it's where a message box appears or something shows up. For example, if you're doing a sum function or doing a formula and you put in one of the wrong parameters or something wrong, Excel will automatically throw an error where you have to change or put in information. Even when Excel asks you to fix formulas, you're technically intervening within the process. So that's what I mean when I say that. So we've all seen it before. Whenever you run any code in Excel VBA, you'll see a Microsoft Visual Basic message and it'll have a runtime error. In this case, it's subscript out of range. It's where I'm looking for sheet 2 and there is no sheet 2 in the workbook I have. So as we all know, that's not something that you want to see, because what it does is it breaks your automation. It makes it to where if you're looking for a report, if you're looking for something, you don't know why something didn't run. It creates confusion, and unless you look at it and deal with it. And of course you cannot press continue. You can only press help and or debug. But what's good is that when you press debug, it tells you exactly what the error is. So the first way of dealing with this is you're going to type in on error resume next. Now you're going to type that anywhere preceding the errors. So what I mean is that once you type in on error resume next, anything after that line of code is going to activate the error handling. So anything that's before that, it won't actually run, and it won't error handle based off of that. So I'm going to show you actually what I mean. So if I were to type sheet 4 before the resume next, it's going to actually error out on sheet 4 because it was before the on error resume next. But if I were to comment this out, run it again, you'll see that it runs, and you see that sheet 2, there is no sheet 2, so it actually went and resumed next. So it went ahead and it did a debug on it. So what I mean is that it did a debug print. Basically, it just a confirmation for me that I know that the code finished. And you see that there was no error message there, although there is no sheet 2. So the on error resume next is how you do that. And then, like I said, what it does is that it will go, it'll skip over the line that has the error message, and it'll allow you to go and continue to actually run your code. Now, in some situations, that's a good thing. And most it's not, because if you're running code that's relying on something being formatted correctly, this can actually cause you a lot of headache. So I'm going to show you the second way of doing it, and it's a little bit easier. This is what most people use. It's on error go to, and then you're going to put a placeholder or a grouping for where the code is going to go to. So what happens is that when this error is out, it's going to go to the section called next place. So wherever that section is, you're going to have to specify the section with a colon. So what happens is that anything after the on error go to, it's going to run that code, and it's going to skip over the code that is messed up, and it's going to go to wherever that placeholder is. So I'm going to run this real quick. Same thing. There is no sheet 2. But you see here, it didn't throw an error message. It didn't move forward. It didn't go and do a debug print. It moved into the next place subsection. You see here where it has a debug print. This sheet is not present. So this is probably going to be the one that you're going to use. But I'm going to be honest with you. You want to check this considerably. Me personally, I do a lot of if statements. I basically normalize my data, or I know how it's supposed to look before it's there. For example, you can't run formulas on data that's not there. I can't, because if you do a range.in Excel down and right, it's going to copy the entire workbook. So you don't want to do that. But if you were to do that, it's going to cause Excel to freak out. But doing it like this, you can at least do some kind of checks, or take the code and revert it to something else. And again, and one thing I want to point out, you notice that I have an exit sub here and an end sub there. The reason why I have it like that is because if the subroutine is actually successful, it's going to end the sub, and it's not going to run the error handling at all. The error handling is going to be outside of the flow of the subroutine. It's not outside of the subroutine itself, because it's obviously within the same subroutine. I'm just going to tell you this: to run a regular subroutine, all you do is just put sub in the name, and an end sub is how you actually end it. Exit sub is what you put for your error handling, for your if statements, things like that, where you want to exit out of it after you ran your code. So you want to think about this section here almost like a whole separate section outside of your main code. But you want to make sure that you're testing everything and making sure that your error handling makes sense, because it can be a double-edged sword. But I think it's very useful, but you want to just make sure that you are identifying it, because what's going to happen is one day you're going to get a weird error, or your data is going to look weird, and it's going to probably be because of how your error handling is set up. So the third one I'm going to show you is kind of a switch to the first two. It's technically a third way, but it's technically a switch to the first two ways I showed you. And what I mean is that it's called on error, like go to zero. What that means is that whenever you do any kind of coding, you are going to be going and debugging based off a line. That just makes it easier to like check your errors and your syntax. And line 0 would technically be the beginning of the subroutine, but in this case, it's actually not that. Actually, what on error go to 0 means is that it essentially turns back on the fatal error handling that was turned off or potentially turned off earlier in your subroutine. So in this example here, I'm going to show you that when I have my on error resume next, of course we learned this earlier, but it's going to resume the next line of code. So when we go to sheet 2, there is no sheet 2. It's going to do a debug print and hit done. Now I'm going to turn off the error handling, and I'm going to say, now whenever there's an error, I want you to tell me what it is. So on error go to 0 is that. So when I enable that and I go back and I select sheet 3, there is no sheet 3, so it's going to go back and turn back the actual error handling on. So you see that this third one, like I said, is technically a switch that turns off the error handling that's being done on the go to placeholder and the resume next placeholder. So you wanna, like I said, you wanna plan this out. Me personally, I like to do if statements to kind of make sure my data is formatted correctly or looks a certain way before I run code. I'd rather do that versus error handling, so that way it's a little easier to kind of track down. Error handling, if you don't do it correctly, it can create a lot of headaches, to be honest with you. And this also works with Access VBA. I recently had some issues with this where I had to troubleshoot some databases I was using that were timing out. Some of the steps are not really necessary, so I basically would just say, hey, just as long as the main things update, I don't care about the other stuff running. So in that case, an on error resume next would actually work in that case. So hopefully you found the video helpful. Like I said, it's 3 ways, but technically 2 of them are straightforward, and the other one is kind of like a switch to kind of make sure that you can get the other errors and you can identify them. So I'm going to put this example in the description box. You can download it if you want to. I'm going to also put the code because I got this from the Microsoft website where it explains these, and hopefully I was able to help. Hopefully I was able to give you a little bit more insight. You can use this workbook as you want, and you have a blessed day, and thanks for watching. Take care.